Good morning, class 9 students. Today we will be studying a poem called Wind, and it is written by Subramanyam Bharati, who happens to be a Tamil poet, and he is known for his patriotism in the pre-independence era. And the interesting fact is that this poem, it was originally written in Tamil language, but it was translated into English by A.K. Ramanujam. This poem is actually a very beautiful and inspiring poem, and you will find it out very soon. So, before we proceed with the stanzas, uh, let's discuss what this poem is all about and the poetic devices we have in this poem and figure of speech. These are very important. So, we actually need to look at them, and at the same time, you also need to understand and memorize them. So, the poem is about wind, as the name suggests, right? And the poet has described the power of wind and the destructions that it causes. And the first poetic device we have is called alliteration. Alliteration. What is alliteration? Alliteration is when you see the repetition of consonant sound. So I will highlight the line where you see the use of alliteration. I have to find it out first. Okay. Strong fires roars and flourish. As you can see that the s sound is being the f sound is being repeated. Fires flourish, fire roars, flourish. So repetition of f sound. So this is an example of alliteration when you see the repetition of consonant sound, right, into adjacent word, and the two adjacent into and more adjacent words. Now we have metaphor. If we talk about metaphor, what is metaphor? A metaphor is a figure of speech that describes an object or action in a way that is not literally true but helps explain the idea or to make comparison. It is just basically comparison of two unlike things without using as and like in simple words, and also sometimes when the literal meaning is something and what the poet is trying to convey is different, then in this case it is an example of metaphor. And in fact this whole poem is a metaphor because this poem is actually about wind, but it is the wind but it is not literally true, but because the poet the poet because this poem it ends on a note to humanity that we can stand against all ravages, natural or man-made, right? We just have to be strong. We have to be strong and we have to face our problems, right? Because the wind destroys only the weakling. And then we have personification is when you personified non-living things. Suppose wind, you can example you, again it is personified. The wind is being personified by the poet because it has been portrayed as a living you know identity. It has been given the wind, it has been personified. So it is an example of personification because wind has been personified. It has been portrayed as a destructive force of weak things, and you will also see the poet has used pronouns for like he, you for the wind. So it is an example of what? It is an example of this personification. And then we have repetition is when you see lots of words are being repeated in the whole poem. For example, crumbling, you see crumbling here, there, and here too, and here. So it is an example of repetition when a word is being repeated without any specific pattern, right? So it is called repetition. And then we have anaphora. What is anaphora? It is when you see repetition of the word in the beginning of the same in the beginning of the followed clause. For example, you can see don't, break, this is one clause, you see don't, and this is second, this is followed, it is the following clause, again the first thing is don't. This is not an example of repetition, because you could see there is actually a a pattern, that it is being repeated in the beginning of a clause, beginning of a sentence, right, or in the following clause. So it is an example of anaphora. Wherever, if we talk about repetition, you can see the crumbling, there is no specific pattern, it is in this line, and then in the third line, in the fourth line, anywhere, right, not exactly in the beginning. But if you see don't is beginning, it is in the beginning of every sentence, right, in these three sentences. So it is an example of anaphora, right. So these are all the poetic devices we have in this poem: alliteration, metaphor, personification, repetition, metaphor, anaphora. So that's all the poetic devices, figure of speeches we have in this poem. Now we will discuss the value points. So the poem, the wind is, the with the help of actually the poet is talking to wind, and what he wants, what he literally wants to convey is that one should be strong in mind and in body, because wind means storm, difficulties and challenges, and you can only be able to conquer them all when you will face them in your life. So you should face your problems boldly and stay firm in difficulties, because wind, it will only destroy the weak things, weaklings. They do not strong, they do not, wind is not able to affect the tall and the strong building, it only destroys weak houses, right. So how you will relate it to your personal life, you will only be defeated when you will feel you're weak, you're not strong, you're not determined, right. So that is why you need to be strong and powerful. And you will also see the four different facets of wind as presented in the poem, like a naughty child, a raging destructive youth, a very helpful friend, and a powerful god. So now it's time for us to go through the stanzas. This is actually a very big poem, but it is actually, it is an excerpt from the poem, because this poem is actually very big. So wind comes softly, don't break the shutters of the windows, don't scatter the papers, don't throw down the books on the shelf. There, look what you did. You again, personification, the you is being used for wind, right. So them all down, you tore the pages of the books, you brought rain again, you are very clever at poking fun at weaklings. What is poking fun? Poking fun means making fun of, and weaklings means a person who is weak, a person who is weak. So you see that in this stanza, the poet is talking to the wind, and he's asking the wind to come softly, because sometimes when it rains torrentially, it destroys a lot of things, your crops and many more. So he is saying that the wind should not be very strong or loud, it should be very soft and gentle. And then he says that wind has a power, and it can destruct, because it breaks the shutter of windows, and it can also scatter the papers, right, everywhere. The wind is very powerful, and when you keep your books on the shelf, it has the power to to push them off the shelf, right. So the poet is describing the power of wind here, and then he says that the wind to look at the destruction that it had done. Understand? So whenever we see that there is a strong wind, so we see that all things that are weak, especially weaklings, we can say uh, like weak house, weak buildings, weak banners, weak plants, everything gets they all get scared, and they all get destroyed by the wind. But okay, but what happened, and she also make the wind also makes fun of things that are weak. So we can say that in the initial part of the poem, the poet is actually referring to wind as a young child. young child, he's saying it that it should come softly like a small child does, like a small children, they are very how small children are. So in this is the first, the facet of wind, where it is, it is said that where it should come as a child, like a naughty child, right? And in the later part, you will also come to know that the wind is destructive, just like a youth, you know, youth, because young boys and young girls, they are always full of energy, violence, and destructions. Understand? So that is what we have in this stanza. So let's now go through. Frail, frail, which is weak. Frail, crumbling means which is falling, and breaking. Frail, crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts, right? So here, the word crumbling, it is actually being repeated, so we see that it is a case of repetition, right? And why it is being repeated? Because just to put and just to lay stress that everything crumbles, which is if it is not strong, and in the face of a strong wind. So that is why the poet is asking, asking the wind, that you're so powerful, that it is very strong, and sometimes it could leads to destructions, right? And houses which are weak, and the doors, and anything that is frail, right? So they get destroyed. Understand? So everything, so which means that everything, whether it is a structure, or it is a people, or it is animal, or it is life, or whatever so what he's trying to say, that everything crumbles, everything that is weak, not everything, I mean everything that is weak, right? So everything that is weak, it gets destroyed. Understand? In the face of adversity. So that is why the poet is saying that whenever a weak person faces any challenges in his life, he breaks down easily. Understand? Now let's go through the next stanza. The wind, the wind god, the wind god winnows. Winnows means again to broke grain free of chaff. I mean to separate grain from husk. Thrashing. Thrashing, when you separate grain, piece of rice from husk, right? The wind god winnows and crushes them all. He won't do what you tell him. He won't. Okay. He won't do what you tell him. So come, let's build strong homes. Let's join the doors firmly. Practice to the firm body. Make the heart steadfast. Do this, the wind will be friends with us. The wind blows out weak fires. He makes strong fires roar and flourish. His friendship is good. We praise him very every day. See, so he has used so many pronouns for the wind. His, him, you, right? So it is an example of personification. So now in this paragraph, you see, children, that the poet is referring to wind as a wind god. So this is again the one of the facet of wind, that it is like a powerful god. Because why is he saying? Because he means that people, those who are weak, right, they fall down, and they simply get destroyed and beaten up, right? So we see that there is a comparison, it is being made between wheat and people. Just like when we thrash, right? When we thrash the wheat to separate the grain from chaff, right? So the wind god, it is actually, you must have seen in the field that we take the use of wind, and it is actually the god that separates the strong people from the weak people. Even when obviously, when you must have seen, when this is this season, when the crops are crops, when they are cut down, right? Then they are thrashed, they are put into the machine, right? And then this machine separates the grain part from the from the husk part, right? So this is actually an example a comparison where the poet is saying that the wind has the capability to separate good people from the weak people, right? And so when there is a strong wind, only the weak things get destroyed, not the powerful and the strong and the determined one. Understand? So that is what he is trying to tell. And then he wants us to make friends with the wind, because wind is not, it is not bad. It is only bad for the people who are not strong, who are weak, right? Understand? So he says that the problem, obviously the problem will not listen to you, right? They will come and you should be prepared like the wind. The wind is good only if you are prepared, and the problems, you will be able to conquer your problem when you are fully prepared. So in preparation we should build strong homes, and that's how you can, prepare yourself. You can bring strong homes, you can close doors of your house firmly, so that the wind cannot, cannot destroy the things that are kept inside, especially the books, like mentioned in the first stanza. And then he says that we should also make our, we should also make our bodies strong and our hearts firm. It is written here, right? Make your body strong, and steadfast means firm, right? So that we can face all the obstacles, challenges in our life. And then he once again, then once and yes, once you are strong, and you're strong enough to face all the challenges, then it will be, you will become friends with the wind, and you will not feel that the you will praise wind every day. Only who will not praise wind every day? The people who are weak, the people who are not strong. Understand? So that's all we have in this poem. I think this poem has a very beautiful message, and actually, yeah, it sends out a very beautiful message, because wind is a natural phenomena, right? Everybody experiences this. So in this poem, the poet is, he's not only talking about the wind. With the help of wind, he's trying to convey a very beautiful message, that yes, the wind is destructive, but it is only destructive for those. So it means the life is not difficult. Life is only difficult for those who do not face their challenges, right? Understand? So this is the important message, that you should be mentally tough, and you should be strong willed, and you should be always prepared in order to survive the hardships of life, right? The problems of life. And who will break down? Only the weak persons will break down, especially like weak buildings. You must have seen when, when wind blows strongly, who who get destroyed? Only the weak house, right? They crumbles, not the strong ones. So be strong, face your trouble, face your problems, and make friends with your enemy. Make and who you will make, with your strength and determination. You can even make wind all the problems your friend. So that's all we have in this poem, children. And these are the few word meanings we have already discussed. You are supposed to do it. So what are the things that things the wind does in the first stanza? It's very simple. I think let's discuss, because this is a very short poem. I don't think we need one more video. We won't be making one more video on this poem, because it's a very short poem, and I have already explained everything from poetic devices to the explanation of, and to the the hidden meaning of the poem. So we have done everything in this poem. So what does the wind do? I mean, in the first stanza, it is clearly you can easily see that. What does it do? What are the it blows violently, it destroys everything. It breaks the shutters of window, uh, you know blow the papers away, right? Throws the book down from the shelves, and also tear the pages. Understand? And then, have you seen anybody? Yes, you can see in the image, these women are thrashing grain, right, at home or in a paddy field. So what is the word in your language for uh, this is something you can say. What do we say in Hindi, right? जब in Hindi we say, when जब धान की कटाई होती है, इसको छाटा जाता है, something like that, right? So you will in English we can also say it thrashing. It means when an actual in actual way. What does the poet wants to say with wind god winnows. It means this wind, it thrashes, mean that the nature shifts the weak things from the strong ones, right? That is the actual answer. And I think the third answer is that, what does the poet say, the wind god? Understand? Now we have, what should we do to make friends with the wind? How can you make friends with the wind? Obviously, when you will prepare yourself, when you will face the strong violent blow of the wind. Understand? So what do the last four lines of the poem mean to you? I mean, last four lines, it has a very important message that one should be very strong, right? And you must face all the hardships of life. That's how you can make yourself strong. And because yes, we have skipped, I think, there is a very important thing you must have seen. Yes, the wind blows out weak fires and makes strong fires roar and flourish. So the strong fires, it actually, it is kind of like wind add fuel to the fire. But if the fire is very small, it will put it off. Understand? So this is very important, that we must make ourselves strong like a burning fire, which grows and which flourishes in the strong wind. And that the small fire, it actually diminishes when the wind is very powerful, right? So you have to be like the strong fires. Understand? So I think, how does the poet speak to the wind, in anger or with humor? You must also have seen or heard of the wind crumbling lies. What is your response to this? Is it like the poets? So this is actually the comparison, but the poet is the poet has questioned, right? And the poet, the poet has actually accepted that the wind is not the bad. Wind is not bad. Wind is only destructive to those who are not strong enough. Understand? So that's all we have in this poem. uh, let's I mean we I'll see you guys in the next class, in the next lecture. Please make sure you go through the poem and go through the video from the beginning to the end. And please take care, please write down all the poetic devices. It's actually very important. So thank you everyone, have a nice day.